Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really great guest on today. He's a dynamic international design thought leader, a creative keynote speaker, an award-winning creative and executive, author of The Art of Direction, serial entrepreneur, and experienced brand consultant with an exceptional range of expertise over a distinguished two-decade career. Please join me in welcoming Vincent Wanga. Welcome.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
As ready as I'll be.
Great. Question one. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
What do I do? That's a funny question because it evolves every half decade. But currently, I'm a full-time entrepreneur, a full-time brand creative consultant. So I work with all types of companies from Fortune 500 to startups to nonprofits and organizations, helping them with brand strategy, creative, branding, design, and also kind of integrate into their teams and help optimize them and get them organized and help scale. On the other side, as I mentioned, I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I have several businesses that I've spun up and I'm running. So my day is pretty fractured. I do a lot of left and right brain switching every hour, but it's really exciting to have my toes dipped in multiple things and just really excited for kind of this new reality I'm in.
Awesome. Sounds great. Question two. What's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Hmm. I think two things. And I don't know if this makes me different, but makes me distinguished in a way. One is just experience. I always love the advice that if you're looking for a financial advisor, don't work with anybody that hasn't done it for at least 10 years.
Mm,
And the reason they give you that advice is you need somebody who's seen the top and the bottom of a market.
mm,
So when things are going great, they can tell you how to invest or reinvest your dividends. When things are bad, they don't panic. They'll walk you through it because they've been through it. And I think that's something that is distinguishing about me is, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I'm still relatively young, but
mm.
I've seen the top of the creative market, when it's boom time and everybody's hiring. I've seen the bottom in 2008 and the dot-com crash, and I've seen what both sides of the market looks like. I've thrived, I've adapted, I've survived. I've experienced so many things in my career, and it gives me a lot of great perspective that I hope to share with people. I think the other thing is I'm very ambitious. I'm almost delusionally ambitious. The unique thing is I have a left and a right brain. So I'm both analytical and creative, and I have the business skills and acumen to actually see my dreams come through. And I think that's something that makes me a little bit unique.
Nice. I love it. Just a note for the audience, if you guys are interested in how we're kicking off 2025, check out our recent episode with Kareem Rashid. He's a notable industrial designer. Question three. Why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? I'll keep it broad and just creative. I think it just matches my skill sets. I think I started as a fine artist. I loved to draw and sculpt and do all those things. And I thought I'd go to New York and become a famous artist. But I also had this restriction where I mentioned I'm both left and right brain. So I'm very analytical and I have an engineering mindset and creative. And that's kind of rare. Usually people are one or the other. So it kept inhibiting my fine art until I found design. And I
Mm,
thought design was this perfect confluence between the creativity of fine art and the science of engineering. We're creating products and services and advertisements. And it allowed me to use that balance to maximum effect. And I really fell in love with design when I discovered it in a special program in high school. And it really took off. And then on top of that, just we get to solve hard problems. And I just love that. We get to apply our creativity and solve practical needs of people every single day. And it's really fun to experience those challenges and find creative ways to solve them. And I think this career has been really fulfilling in that context.
great. So some people struggle with number four, but the question is, what does your future look like?
I can understand that. There's macro conditions that affect your future, and there's micro conditions that maybe you can control. So I can understand the struggle there for a lot of people. For me, the future is really bright. As I mentioned, I'm controlling my own destiny at the moment. I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I have lots of ambitious projects. I see myself evolving from kind of the core design creative aspect more into experiential. And what I mean by that is getting into hospitality. I really want to start a boutique hospitality collection and really take all of my creative marketing and business skills and apply it to something that people get to experience and touch and feel and really make memories for people. It's something that's a personal passion of mine. It's a direction I've been moving towards. And I think the more digital our jobs get as creatives, the more we yearn for kind of like tactile physical experiences. And I want to take that to the next level and turn the environment into that experience and really challenge myself in a new way. So I think that's a big part of my future.
I love that. Number five, we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
That's a really great question. I'll answer it practically first and then philosophically. I think practically, I am inspired by my place, my sense of place. So, I'm a creative. I need a certain environment to do my craft. I need to be in a certain city. It's why we gravitate to New York and Europe and all these places that are filled with people who think like us. So that's always been kind of paramount to make sure my space continues to inspire me and that people in that place continue to inspire me from a philosophical standpoint, I think just finding a way that you can thrive in your environment without letting it be a restriction. I think what I mean by that is I always find it really important that you challenge yourself in your career.
Mm,
And while it's important that you have an inspiring space, it's also important that wherever you are is challenging you creatively and intellectually.
mm,
I am not in New York or Europe. I'm in DC. And
mm,
in DC, we get to solve really hard problems that affect people all over the United States and sometimes the world. So
mm,
while it's not, in that bucket of my first context, it's definitely a place where I feel challenged.
mm,
And, I might be working on a project or working on a form for the Veteran Affairs Administration. And if
mm,
that thing doesn't work, millions of veterans don't get their benefits.
mm,
So the stakes of it, the challenge of it, and then using creativity to solve hard problems, even if your particular environment or space is not inherently creative, I
mm,
think is also important. So I just wanted to lay it out two kind of different ways where even if you're not in an inspiring physical space or environment,
mm.
you can find inspiration where you are if there's hard problems and challenges to solve. And that's one thing that led me to my current location.
Great. Number six, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
Oh man, so many things I would say. If I had to distill it down, one, stay in school. I got kicked out of school for financial reasons. It wasn't, anything that was my fault, but I can't tell you how difficult that's made my career path. It really took the hard route to the top of creative, and I could have avoided a lot of that if I found a way to stay in school. So anybody who's thinking about that, I hate the tech debate about do you stay in school or go start a company? You can do both. So stay in school. It'll make your life and career a lot easier. I think the second piece of advice I'd give myself, uh, you know, always chase your dreams. Don't let comfortability inhibit, your ability to have ambition. And that's something I learned later in my career, and I'm making the most of it. But when you're younger and you can afford to fail, that's a great time to really challenge yourself and push the envelope. And then the third thing, probably invest in Apple stock or something like that. I'd be much better off now if I had that hindsight.
Mm. Great. Number seven, what's a day in your life like?
I teased this a little bit. It's very fractured, but I like it that way. From day to day, week to week, even hour to hour, I'm switching gears from left to right brain. I'm running a company as a CEO. I'm you know optimizing my personal brand. I'm working on consulting projects for clients. I'm thinking of next ambitious projects like the hospitality thing I mentioned. I'm meeting with colleagues and being inspired. I'm doing hands-on design work. So there's a lot that goes on in my day to day. I really love that, I'm challenged every single moment. I'm constantly switching gears. That's just the environment I really thrive in. I have idle hand syndrome. So my day is very fractured, but very fulfilling.
Mm. Lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
More than, giving you particular books that I read and blogs and Instagram handles and people that I follow,
Mm,
I think the best advice I can give people, especially when you reach my level of your career, is to stay hands-on.
mm,
I intentionally seek consulting roles where I might need to do some hands-on design work. It keeps me from just being a philosopher of creative and actually being a practitioner. And I
mm,
think once you get to that 10 to 20-year mark in your career, it's really important because, as you know, our industry evolves so fast. The
mm,
software that you knew 5 years ago is passe and there's something new, and now you got to learn Figma. So
mm,
it forces me to not get into a role where I'm just a figurehead. And I have to learn these practical skills and keep up to date with the very things that I'm going to be creative directing or art directing or, an executive in charge of for a team. So that really helps keep me in touch with what's the latest going on in design. And I really try to, when I can and when I have the bandwidth, seek out opportunities to keep my skills sharp by actually doing the hands-on work.
mm, mm. Great. Number nine is around tools. Do you use both digital and analog tools?
I do. I'm a little bit old school where I came up in school and in the creative field when you had to sketch first. Everything had to be sketched, then those sketches get approved, then you get digital. So I still keep a lot of those skills. I mentioned I'm a fine artist. So I really miss the tactile nature of what we used to do, going on press checks and feeling paper and all that stuff is largely been eliminated with, digital and interactive. But any chance I get, to journal or to sketch, I definitely love it. Think I also have a passion for interior design. So that's where I get to feel materials and different textures. And I love that part of putting together composites that people can actually live in and experience.
Mm,
I think in addition to that, digitally speaking, it's a mix of different tools. I love Notion for personal project management. It has AI built into it.
mm,
I use Trello for like client interactions and project management. Chat GPT and AI tools as business partners and different ways that I leverage that to really help multiply the skill sets that I have. Obviously, the Adobe Creative Suite, Figma. One of my favorite tools recently is the Topaz Gigapixel AI.
mm,
It's a great AI tool that can help you manipulate images and then turn, a small pixelated thing from your portfolio from 10 years ago into something that could be 4K and usable today. So I'm just really amazed by the different tools available today, especially in the AI landscape that can help solve a lot of the problems that I have. And I try to write them down and then go find solutions for them. And I try to balance out between my digital tools and my analog physical tools.
mm. Great. Halfway number 10. How do you deal with work-life or life-work balance?
Not very well. I'm definitely not an area I'm ever going to write a book on. I like to stay busy, as I mentioned earlier, with my a day in my life. I think the difference is if you love what you do,
Mm,
it's okay. I'm incredibly passionate about the things that I pursue, so I'm very selective to make sure if my day is busy, if I'm doing all these fractured responsibilities, that everything that I'm doing is passion driven.
mm,
Therefore, I never feel overwhelmed. I never feel burnt out. It's only when I'm doing things I don't want to do, things that don't bring me value, things that bring me pain and frustration, and stress. So I think more than trying to find a work-life balance, I think people should really focus on investing in the things that bring them joy and passion and fulfillment.
mm,
And they'll never really feel like they're working too much.
mm. If you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
That's tough. I mentioned my fine art background. I'd probably be in the fine art space. If I was still in creative in some way, I'd probably be in the film industry. That was another one of my first passions. I went to a special school for that early in my life. I'd probably be making documentary films or something like that.
Mm,
Uh, but other than that, I think I'd pretty much be doing what I'm doing on the entrepreneurial end. I'd be starting businesses and companies with a creative bent to it and really expressing this unique dichotomy I have between my creative side and my business and analytics side and putting those together with really successful results. So I really enjoy those challenges and building and scaling businesses. And I think regardless, that's what I'd be doing.
mm. What would you not like to do with your career?
Uh, that's interesting. I don't know. At this point in my career, I've done so many things in so many different industries for so many different types of organizations. I think if I had my preference, and this is nothing against agencies, I love, my agency experience. The only thing about it is it felt a little bit superficial, the relationships. You're hired to do a project and an engagement. You meet with the client, you help solve their problem, and then you look at these metrics, and then the relationship disappears, and you move on to the next thing. What I
Mhm.
loved about when I was in-house is that I got to look at something in the long term. I got to help a company scale over time and really truly see the results and iterate on those results and continue to improve it. So I think at this point in my career, I really love long-term engagements where I can see that through from project to completion, but continue that engagement to continue to iterate and improve on that brand or the product or the execution over time and really build a lasting legacy in the work and execution that we do. So I'm about working less and working longer on those types of projects rather than lots of short-term engagements, if that makes sense.
It does. Do you have a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
I have a few, if I can think off the top of my head. I think of fall down seven times, get up eight. The Japanese proverb is probably the ethos to my life. I fail a lot, but I am always delusionally optimistic of, learning from those mistakes and finding success. And I live by that ethos. I love the quote by Desmond Tutu. I think he says, do not argue or do not raise your voice and prove your argument. I think it's something I learn when dealing with clients. I think of Confucius, who said, when you're going on your path of revenge, dig two graves. And I think what I learned from that is like, let shit go. Don't let anger and retribution cloud your judgment and your path and journey. Something I do with varying degrees of success. And then the last one would probably be Mahatma Gandhi, who said, do not speak if you cannot improve upon silence. And I think anybody who knows me in my demeanor, um, I speak and I try to be thoughtful when I do. And if I don't have something intelligible or prominent to add, I will listen first and analyze. And I think there's a lot of people who talk and don't listen, and I try to not be one of those people.
Nice. How about a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Um, there's a lot of corporate jargon, as you know, once you get to the director level and above that you have to use. I hate it. It's just part of the game. But I don't have anything that can particularly stands out. I just hate anything that's too trendy or overused. It has to have a personal meaning to me. So, I don't have anything specific to contribute to that. I just hate corporate jargon and anything trendy or Instagrammy. I try to stay away from it.
You're choosing one word to describe yourself. What word do you choose?
That's tough. I would probably say, if I had to choose one word, calculated.
Hmm.
Everything that I do is extremely highly calculated. I am a plotter, and people will see me write a book. I've been planning that for 5 years.
Hmm.
So just really making sure in a way to improve my success rate, which has been pretty good, is because I am incredibly prepared and calculated. And I've weighed every scenario, the pros and the cons, the potential roadblocks, and I'm ready for them. And then I can pivot quickly. And that is usually why I'm really good at executing things that people often think at the time is wildly ambitious and impractical until it gets done. And I think a lot of successful people have that mindset.
16. What keeps you up at night?
A lot of things keep me up at night. There's the macro things, the geopolitical things that keep me up at night, as a person. But I think in our field, AI really keeps me up at night. I think it's an incredible tool and opportunity for creatives. I fear too often in our industry, we are not at the vanguard of these shifts, whether it's, Web3 or AI or lots of emerging trends, the birth of interactive design. what happened with the iPhone and HTML5 and how that killed Flash, the transition from, print to digital design. We are often in a reactionary tone and never leading those transitions. So I think AI is in a position to be leveraged very successfully by creatives to elevate our work and our capacity and make up for our shortcomings. But I'm also concerned by its exponential growth and capability and its ability to mimic a craft that I thought it never would be able to do. Look at the progress it's made on video in just a short period of time. And I'm less fearful of the technology and more ignorant leadership who might see the progression in AI and feel like it'd be a sufficient replacement for human creative energy. And I think that's a very short-sighted perspective. One of my favorite sayings is just because it can doesn't mean it should. And I think we need to be very conscious about how we leverage AI, especially in the creative space. But also, just because it can doesn't mean it's a better or suitable replacement for human creativity and ingenuity, which has stood the test of time. So that keeps me up at night because I'm in a position of leadership where I have to make those tough decisions and try to inspire leaders who make those decisions, how they can leverage this technology without, trying to cut out the people like you and me and probably people listening who have been the driving force of innovation for all of humanity for as long as time. And I think that's really important that we remember that.
Great. Final stretch here. What's a dream you're chasing?
I mentioned it earlier, hospitality. I'm really looking forward to applying my skills in creative and brand and business into something hyper experiential. It's really about the customer experience and taking care of the customer and creating an environment that is unique and bespoke and unforgettable, but also thoughtful. Um, we've all had good hospitality experiences. We've all had terrible ones. And I think oftentimes that can come down to what that customer experience was and how that customer service was. And this gets into service design and branding and technology. There's just so many aspects of the things that I deal with in my day-to-day career. I get to apply to one thing into a physical space, interior design. I'm really excited about it. So definitely a big part of my future and looking forward to it.
What inspires you?
I think overall being challenged.
Mm.
I hate being comfortable. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks that way, but people often are mystified by why when I've reached a certain threshold in my life or career, I risk it all to like go on some wild adventure or some ambitious project. And it's because I constantly need to challenge myself. And that's just something that inherently drives me. I have zero fear of failure. I've failed so many times and I learn from each experience and that leads to future success. And I think that's what allows me to, walk with ambition and really find ways that I can make myself uncomfortable. If I have all these creative skills and I've maxed that out, well, let's go challenge my business skills and go start a business and learn what that takes and the soft and hard skills that it takes to run that. I'll learn finance. If I'm really a good designer, I want to learn code. Not necessarily because I'm trying to be a better developer than a developer, but I want to know the impact of my designs in the development realm so that I can be a better partner for those teams. So
Mm.
constantly challenging myself is what inspires me. It's what drives me. And I think the results have made that a worthy pursuit.
Mm. Great. And last couple here, number 19. Any advice you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, on that vein, I think particularly for anybody who's younger in their career or in the middle of their career, like you need to challenge yourself. Find multiple ways to express your creativity in your craft, whether you're at an agency or you're in-house or you work for a nonprofit or you work for the federal government or you work internationally. Experience as much as you can while you're young. It'll save you a lot of headache and heartache when you're older because you're not going to take risks for things that you know you don't enjoy because you've already had that experience. More importantly, you can segment and really focus on those things that bring you fulfillment and passion, like I talked about earlier. And when you're in that space, no matter how challenging the task is or the obligation, if it brings you joy and passion and purpose, again, it makes the working part so much easier. And I just really want to emphasize that for anybody who's, maybe been in one industry and done one thing for 10 years. Like try to mix it up and experience something different. At least at minimum, the benefit you'll get is not having this grass is greener syndrome. You've experienced it, and then you can focus the rest of your career on just the things that bring you value.
Great. And finally, number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you and what's our call to action?
That's a great question. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me at my website, vincentwanga.com. I also wrote a book called The Art of Direction that is releasing imminently. This is a book about, my personal career journey, but also how to elevate to the roles of art director, design director, creative director. And if you're in those roles, how you can be a better practitioner and a more empathetic leader. And even if you're not in the creative field, I think there's a lot of hard-earned personal and insightful anecdotes that can help anybody in their leadership journey. Check it out on my website. It'll be on Amazon soon. Those are primary ways you can get a hold of me. And to kind of leave you with a call to action, probably my own personal favorite saying is just be really audacious, in your career, in your pursuits. Life is short. Our careers are even shorter. You never know when things are going to change in our industry. So if you have a dream, especially while you can and you can afford to fail, pursue it. There's nothing wrong with not executing fully and failing in that pursuit. It's a life lesson and a learning opportunity that will lead you to future success. So I really want to push people to pursue their dreams. Everything in my career and in my book is about that. Everything I've manifested and I've dreamed of, I went after and I did it. And that's not just out of osmosis. I planned, I prepared, I was calculated. But it first starts with having the energy and the gumption to do it in the first place. And I want more creatives to think entrepreneurial and not just what they can do for an organization or a company that, as you know, when times are bad, aren't giving you that same thought or consideration. So take the empowerment into yourself and be ambitious.
Great, I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I found myself nodding and agreeing with a lot of what you were saying throughout the episode. So I thought it was really fantastic. A lot of really great wisdom there. Thank you so much for joining.
No, I appreciate that, Thomas.